Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, this is going to be a day one update on the new build that I decided to reroll into. That's going to be a Witchhunter Lightning Warp Spammer. So, before we get into the video, just remember down below in the description, there will be a link to a Mobalytics guide. It will be a full written guide that I'll keep updating as I'm playing the character. Right now, it's just going to be the day one update of around level, I think 70 in tier 7 maps. Of course, I'll be updating that as I make more progress. So, you can look down there. Another disclaimer I want to put out. I do not recommend leveling as this at all. This build is I play the grenade mercenary stuff until I get to endgame, and then I swap into this build because I tried leveling as this. I did, and it's not fun for the majority of the time spent. So I would heavily suggest simply just playing a different build, spamming through the campaign. Now, before we get into that, also, as well, if you haven't already, I'd heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that is the best way of currently supporting me and showing me that you want more content like this. Now, let's talk about the concept of the build. The idea is Lightning Warp. Lightning Warp is a skill that allows you to teleport to an enemy that is within calling range. Calling range is either 30% for a normal, I think 15% for a magic, something like that, and then 10% for a rare and 5% for a unique enemy. And the idea here is you teleport to the calling enemy, creating a gigantic lightning explosion. This AoE is absolutely absurd. As you can see probably in the footage, I have a little bit of AoE investment and we cover almost the entire screen. Now, the biggest problem with this skill, of course, is, it requires a calling enemy, like an enemy within calling range, to actually kill. So it ends up being very clunky when used by itself, but thankfully we have some tools for that. One thing specifically is its interaction with Ball Lightning. Ball Lightning allows you to teleport to said Ball Lightning whenever you use Lightning Warp, which gives you a way to spam Lightning Warp in a way that is conducive for clear. And that's cool, that's great and all, but there's a lot of questions that I'm sure you probably have to ask. First things off, I wanted to reroll because now that I've actually played the game, the Stormweaver is cool and all, right? But I felt like I had to think a lot while playing, and I wanted to play a build that didn't require that much thinking. And to do that, I needed to pull out the Theorycrafting goggles. Also as well, I really wanted to just play a new build now that I understand all of the mechanics of the game, right? It's really hard to plan a build out in the future when you're just starting day one and you have no prior knowledge. But now that I've been playing the game for about a week, now I can actually start hunkering down and starting to actually theorycraft things, which is what we're going to be doing today. Now, first question you probably have, why are we a witch hunter? Why are we a witch hunter, dude? Oh boy, let me explain this one. So there's a few reasons why. The first reason is I was playing a mercenary and I was planning on playing a different build. I was trying to play Dark Effigy. Don't play that, it's awful. So I decided to level as this instead because I was messing around and looking around. Now, the original idea was to play Gemling because the idea is you can actually cast your Ball Lightning with Unleash, right? Then cast your Lightning Warp with Unleash because the Gemlings know that gives you an extra support based on yada yada yada, right? And this would actually be better gameplay overall, but I realized the absurd power of Witchhunter, and not the node you're thinking of. I am not talking about the explosion node. I currently do not have the explosion node yet. I tried it out. It's okay. We hit the whole screen anyway, so we don't necessarily need the explosion node, but I do probably plan on getting it. Maybe, I'm not entirely sure. We might actually get the weapon set passive points to make single target easier, but we'll figure it out when we get there in that regard. But I am actually talking about Decimating Strike. So Decimating Strike is a keystone in Witchhunter that makes it so that whenever you hit an enemy, any enemy, by the way, not just bosses, any enemy, you deal up to, I think, from 5 to 30% of their life in one hit. Now, that doesn't sound all that good, but when you start putting the math together, okay? Let's say I hit a normal monster, right? For 30% of their HP with the first hit, right? With the decimation node, right? Then I cull them at 30% with, of course, Lightning Warp and Culling Strike from before that. That means that in theory, in endgame, on average, I will have to just chew through, if you were to do the math, maybe 40% of the total life of monsters. This means that my damage, whether like it just needs to hit that 40% mark. Now, of course, when we get to endgame, that will become a lot more relevant when we're doing thicker stuff, thicker content like Delirium, like Ritual, stuff like that. Like, I think this will be actually really good in Ritual because I'll be able to hit the whole fucking screen with it. So that'll be fun. I plan on probably pushing Ritual with this build. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken. So that's cool and all. But that's why the build functions so well, is because like I was like, wait a moment, I'm level 70. I might have enough damage. I went and like put in a red map earlier. And I was like, wait, I'm actually killing stuff. That's because turns out when enemies only have 40% on average of the life that you're going to do to them, it's really easy. Now, the only problem now is to fix single target. That is the only issue. Before we talk about how we're going to fix single target, let's talk about the other options in terms of ascendancy. You can play this on Stormweaver. You can go Archmage on Stormweaver. That is an option. Like I said before, you can go Gemling. You can play that with, of course, the double Unleash setup, which would make your clear feel amazing, by the way. So that could be good. You could also go mana stacking with Gemling as well to go Mom and stuff like that as well. So those are both Mom options. All the other ascendancies, I'm sure there are reasons to play them per se, but I think out of all of them, I think Gemling and Stormweaver are the tastiest. Demon form could be like just +4 to spell skill levels. That could just be more damage. Then you wouldn't need the Decimating Strike stuff. So you could play this on Infernalist. You could play this on Blood Mage. This is entirely Blood Mage friendly because we're playing a crit build. Blood Mage would kind of go hard with all of this, considering, you know, like we're clearing so fast and yada, yada, yada. That's cool and all. So there's a lot of different ways you could play this build, but I decided to go with Witchhunter because I want my clear to be absolutely freaking ridiculous. And that's what I ended up with. So, like I said, this is a tier 7 map snapshot. We're at like level 70. I plan on pushing this character more and more and more with more investment. But one thing I would like to note before we talk about the single target setup is 3 dragons. So 3 dragons is a unique helmet that makes it so that instead of applying a shock, your lightning damage can apply to freeze buildup and etc. for the all the other elements, right? That's really cool because turns out when you use Lightning Warp, it creates a shocked ground in the perimeter that you use the Lightning Warp on, meaning that we don't need to actually physically shock enemies. This means that we can just simply freeze them and then, you know, do extra damage because the shock. So we get the best of both worlds. And this ends up making our single target feel a lot better because guess what? Everything's frozen. Everything's frozen. Everything shatters. It's just amazing just watching it go off. Now, that's cool and all, right? But let's talk about single target. The single target is what I would call good enough right now. Now, the damage is there. That's not the problem. The damage is there, and we can push the damage even farther and farther and farther with plus levels. That's not an issue. That is not the issue whatsoever. The problem is we are playing a melee build pretty much, because I don't know if you've noticed, but when we use the ball lightnings, we have to like actually teleport to said ball lightnings. If our AoE isn't big enough, we have to actually be near the enemy. And I also opted in utilizing Orb of Storms, double Orb of Storms. Orb of Storms actually does a decent amount of damage. So if you don't know, Orb of Storms, what it does is whenever you use a lightning spell near Orb of Storms, you do a decent amount of single target damage. They zap things near them, and that works and all, but with the lightning warp ball lightning setup I got going on, but I'm planning on doing like kind of maybe a weapon swap since we're mercenary, but I plan on doing kind of a swap where what I will do is I'll swap out all of my AoE nodes that I currently have on the tree for cast speed nodes and go for a setup where I spam the ever living fuck out of like a cheap lightning spell skill, probably the one that comes from the staff, and we just give it as much cast speed as possible with, with arcane, whatever it's called. I can't remember the cast speed one, but stuff like that, where we just get as many casts as possible. We put 2 Orbisorms on the boss and we just simply hold down the button. Remember, we don't need to do pinnacle bosses with this. I do not plan on doing any pinnacle bosses with this. The only boss I actually plan on probably doing with this is King of the King of the Mist dude. So in theory, we should be just fine in terms of that. So the melee playstyle is a little annoying, but we should be able to scale enough damage that that's not a problem. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that so far. I'm pretty happy with the build. I will make a more full detailed update once, of course, I actually get some I don't know, some experience playing the character, because that's the beautiful thing about how I like to make builds is I like to kind of keep things open, ideas open. That's why I didn't immediately go for Archmage, because I'm like, maybe we can try something else. Maybe we can scale something else. Maybe lightning is cold. Maybe, like, there's a lot of different ways we can scale damage right now that I'm actually excited to try out. So with all that being said, this has been Dread. Like I said, if you want to see the full guide, make sure to go down in the description below and use the Mobalytics guide. Like I said, I'll be updating that. With all that being said, bye guys.